Hello everyone, today we are going to be exploring auto layout in Figma. Basically, when you hear the word auto layout, what comes to your mind? Okay, for me, I will categorize the users of Figma into two when it comes to auto layout. One of the categories are those people that regard auto layout as a time saver, a feature in Figma that helps them to be more efficient, get things done easily and faster, while the other category are those people that regard auto layout as frustration, one of those features in Figma that discourage them from using Figma. Today we are going to be exploring this auto layout in Figma in a more practical way. So we are going to be building some of the common elements that every professional UI UX designer do design. We are going to be designing some of those interesting elements that you can achieve with auto layout when working with any project. So grab your seats, let's get to work. There are many ways you can start with auto layouts, but let's start with the basic. One way is to bring the text tool and write button like this. So when you look at this panel here, you can see just the basic features, the basic settings that you do have. But I want you to observe this area very well, because once I duplicate this guy and I right click, when you right click, you can see an option that says add auto layout. And if you observe very well, you can see the shortcut here that says Shift A. Okay, so once I add auto layout, you can see that a new panel here has been added called auto layout. So in this section, these are some of the settings that you can use to customize the auto layout to suit whatever you need. Okay, now another way to know if this is an auto layout or to differentiate an auto layout from any other element is to look at the panel here. You can see on this side we just have a text called button, but on this side we have a frame, but it has a unique icon here which we use to identify an auto layout. If I bring a regular frame to here, you can see our frame here is just a hashtag like kind of icon, but our auto layout here has like a stack of rectangle as an icon on it. So that is one way to differentiate an auto layout. Okay, but one of the main ways there is how smart this man can become. Okay, so let's get to work. What is going on here and what can we do next? So when you add auto layout, it's like you added another frame to anything. Okay, but this frame is like a smart frame. Now I can select this frame and add it a field if I want, like this. So I now have something like this. So let's say I want to add more stuff here. So I write button to press like this. So you can see the frame is automatically extending as much as my elements keep extending as well. So I can also select this person here, the text inside the auto layout, and press Ctrl D to duplicate. And as I keep duplicating, the background or the auto layout will keep on extending to fit in to the size that I have specified earlier. Okay, now let's go back a little bit. So now that you have something like this, let's get to this. I'm going to select this and delete, or maybe delete some. Okay, so here we have a basic button that you can work with. So how do you add more elements, or how do you customize it for an instance? So now I'm going to select this guy and duplicate like this, and I will change the color field to something different like this, and I'll duplicate this guy and change to another color like this. Now we have different colors here. So here, if you come here let's start from this area on this option here. So when do we use this and when do we use all these settings here? Okay, so let's begin from the top. This one is not an auto layout. This is just a new feature in Figma, but maybe later on I will take you to what this guy does. Okay, now for this one, it said vertical. Vertical, you get to understand it when you have multiple elements inside this auto layout. Like if I select this text and then press Ctrl D to duplicate. So by default, it's aligning horizontal. Select this guy and click on this man. You can see now it's aligning vertical. But if you want it to align horizontal, you can switch like this. Okay, so on this one, it's called grids. Okay, but it's still on beta for now. Okay, it's also a new feature. It hasn't been here, so maybe later on I can give you a glance of what that man can do. But for the scope of auto layout, it might not necessarily come in unless you invite it to come. Okay, maybe later on we can invite it, but for now we are going to be leaving it alone. Let it be on its own. Okay, now the next one is this one. It's called wrap. So when do wrap come into play? Let's say I have something like this, Ctrl D, Ctrl D. Okay, you can see I have multiple elements now. If I select this guy and I resize this man like this, did you see what is happening? But once you set this guy to wrap, so you select the main auto layout here and then say wrap. Now when you resize like this, you can see that the elements begin to wrap among themselves to adjust, to adapt to the size of the auto layout. So remember, if you align like this, okay, they all align vertical, and if you align like this, they all align horizontal. Now if you set to wrap, it means that as the element get bigger or smaller, the content inside begin to adjust to fit in to the size of the main auto layout. So that is that one. Now the next one we are going to be talking about is if I select this guy and duplicate like this. So this side is one of those confusing side about auto layout. Okay, so but let's see how we can be able to explain it in a way that is going to be easy to understand. So now by default here is saying it's giving us like, okay, this is the width, and it's giving us a preview here that is on hog. Like if you leave there, it's going to be hog, and it's giving you like the size of this man. That is when you measure from this point to this point, it's going to give you 83 pixel, and when you measure from here, which is the height from here to here, it's going to give you 34 pixel. Okay, but we are seeing hog there. What does that hog mean? Okay, consider hog as a reference to balloon. I know you know what balloon is. Okay, now whenever you are blowing air inside the balloon size will be determined by the amount of air blown into it. Okay, so let's see, that means whenever this man is set to hog, the size of this man will be determined by the size of the content inside. So what it means now is that if I double click here and increase the font size of this text to something like 50, now you can see the button get bigger to fit into the size. And if I set it to something like 10, and the button gets smaller. But watch, if I select this auto layout and come here instead of hog, you can see hog is checked now. If I set it to fix means that I want it to be static. I want this button to be static. If the content inside get bigger or smaller, it has no business with you. Okay, now if I set it to 50, you can see, oh, the text, the button is just the way it is, but this guy is just this size, the width is just the way it is, but the size of the text has increased. Okay, now you might say, okay, this man has adjusted, this is not how it was, and that is because even the height too is set to hog. That means if this man increase in height, it's going to increase but if it increases in width, it will not increase. So let's say we set this man again to hug, and this one, okay, sorry, let's say we set this auto layout here to hug, for instance. Now you can see it's hugging the content. That means if I reduce this size to something like 20, like this, oh, because it's hugging it, the content has gotten small, and the container is not small. So if I select these guys and say fix, for instance, and take this one and say fix as well, that is the height and the width all should be fixed. That is, if this guy increase, let's say I do something like this, get small, get big, is nothing. Okay, so that is what the hug and the fix does. Okay, so when you set the width of an auto layout to hug, it means that the content will determine the size of the auto layout. But when you set it to fix, it means that you are the one that has to decide the height or the width of the auto layout. So there's another one here called fill container, and to explain that, an auto layout has to be inside an auto layout. For instance, if I duplicate this guy like this and set this man, change the color to something like this, I just want to have like different colors so it's not going to be confusing. Like this. Okay, now you can, since these guys are already auto layouts, you can also select all of them like this, like select this, hold shift, select this and this, and you press shift A to add auto layout on them. Now on this auto layout, it has everything that everyone do have, but the content inside is now something different. So let's say you select this auto layout right now and determine the size of the auto layout by extending them like this, like this. Okay, now you might not ask, as I'm extending this man, why is the content just aligned to the left? And that is because of this alignment option here. Since the main auto layout is selected, if you align like this, that goes to the right and left or center or top or the corner there or bottom like this. So this is what the alignment option does. Okay, so now let's begin to customize this guy. If you select the content inside and then go to this width and height again, remember when we are setting them, when we are customizing the auto layout on its own, it only has two options, like this one now that is outside here, that is not inside another auto layout. If you come here, it will only have two options, fix and hug. But when an auto layout is inside another auto layout, another option comes in that says fill. Consider fill as you pouring water inside a bucket. Okay, if the buckets get bigger, the water will expand to fill in the bucket, and if the bucket gets smaller, the water will also adjust. So that is exactly what fill does here. Now since we have auto layouts that contains an auto layout, that means the content inside here, okay, can be determined by, do we want this content to fill the container or do we want it to hug the content inside? So if you select this guy and say I want it to fill container, what it means is that it's going to extend to fill in the container as much as it can. Okay, so this one, if you set it to, this one is hug. Now the hug, it means that the contents of this guy will determine the size. That means if I set the text size to something like 100 or maybe something like 40 like this, you can see it get bigger, right? Now this one, if I set it to fix, so what it means is that I have to be the one to determine the size. Like let's say I want it to be 100 for instance, you can see it get bigger. The text doesn't change, nothing change. Okay, so let's set it back to hug again, or maybe let's experiment with the height. So this one, if I set the height now to fill, it's going to extend to fill in the height. And if I set this one to fill as well, you can see it will also extend to fill in the height. But if I set it to hug, it's going to hug the content. So if I set this guy to something like 20, I can see it just hugging the content. I don't care what you're saying. Oh, I don't care. I don't care if this guy is taking over the place. What I care about is the content inside, to make sure I'm hugging this thing that is inside me. Okay, now this one is set to fix. That means I have to be the one to determine the size. Like if I set the width to height, the height to fix, now I can increase or decrease the height as much as I want, and increase or decrease the width as much as I want. Like that. Okay, so now that you've gotten it, I hope it's a little bit clear. But if it's not, as we keep on making adjustments, then I think it's going to be more clearer. Now the next one is let's set all of these guys to something like, okay, let me use another one for instance. So this one, we have something like this. I'm going to duplicate this guy here. Okay, we have been able to determine, to know what this thing does. Now this one, if you experiment with this alignment, you will not notice any change, because the content is fitting very tight to this bar. There's no place they have to move along. So this one is set to gap. For us to understand the gap in between, we are going to set this guy to have multiple elements inside. So if I duplicate this guy, Ctrl D, and select the auto layout here, if I increase this size like this, did you see I am determining the size between the elements inside. That means if I select this guy and press Ctrl D to have more elements, I can determine their size by just writing here 20 like this. Another way you can also adjust this guy is that if you hover on this, you're going to notice a little red dash here. If you drag and draw like this, you are going to determine the size. Okay, now as I begin to adjust here, you're going to see that this guy is changing in real time. So you can, if you already know the size that you want to use, you can just come and type it here, or you can just experiment by dragging here like that. So now another way, there's a drop down here. What does it mean? What does that? Okay, we have two options here, the fix and the auto. So now on the fix, you have to be the one to determine the size. So but on the auto, when you set it to auto, you cannot determine the size. So what will happen here is that if the auto layout extends, the element inside the auto layout has to adjust proportional to the size that the auto layout is leaving. So if I increase the size of the auto layout here, you can see the element now is adjusting to fit in, or to size themselves, or to give themselves equal spacing according to the length of the auto layout. So but if you set it to fix, for instance, you can see what I just said now is that the gap in here has to be 50. So if you extend this man like this, these guys will not move, because you said the gap in between them should just be 50. So if you extend, they won't move. But when you say auto, they will now have to move to adapt to the size of the main auto layout like that. I hope that is clear. All right, so let's move on to the next one here. The next one is this one is called padding. So on the padding here, by default we have 10 by 10 padding. What padding does is just the gap in between the elements. So if I select this guy and type 0 here and 0 here, now you can see the gap in between the auto layout and the content inside is nothing, like there's no gap now. Okay, But when you want to create the gap, that is where the padding comes in. You can click to right like this. You can see I just made the horizontal padding here, and then the vertical padding is 0. You can also type 20 to make it 20 by 20 padding. So what this means is that if you keep on increasing this guy like this, okay, it will keep on maintaining 20 percent gap in between the element and the main auto layout like this. Okay, so even if you make it small like this, it will still maintain that 20 padding that you've given it. So now I would want, okay, to change them to 10. So you might be curious, how do I change all of them to 10? And that's because I hold Control key and click on one and just type maybe something like 5 for an instance. So now let's say you want to adjust this one to be 20 and this one should be 30 and so on and so forth. So that is where you click on this area. When you click, you can now adjust this one to be 20 and this one to say no padding, and this one 30 and this one 10. So you can determine the amount of padding you want to give to each side. So if you hold Control key and click on one, you just type 10 and all of them will change to 10 like that. All right, so going more advanced, I'm going to add, maybe bring an ellipse like this. So I will add an ellipse like this and then change the color to something, and I'm going to duplicate here and duplicate here like this. So if I select these guys and add auto layout by pressing Shift A, now you can see automatically they are adapt to any size that is closer to them. So if I want more gap, I'll say 20. Okay, so that is the gap. But let's say I say let this color, let this one be this color and this one be this color. Okay, like this. Now when you begin to, when you add when the number here is a positive number like this, it's going to give it it's going to give a spacing, right? But when the number becomes a negative number, like something like -10 for an instance, okay, they begin to overlap. So negative number makes them overlap like this, and positive number create a space in between them. So now when they overlap like this, you can see the red is at the bottom, the pink is at the top of the red, and so on and so forth. So what if you want the opposite? I want the green to go down whenever I'm adjusting this guy here. So that is where this advanced comes in. If you click on this auto layer settings here, you have more options. This one said canvas stacking for an instance. This one said last on top, that is the last element. If I select this guy and duplicate, Ctrl D and change the color to something else like this, you can see it's on top. But when you select this guy and click on these settings and say first on top, so you can see the arrangement changes. So you can make this one to come first or to come last like that. So you are going to see this option that say as stroke, is it excluded or included? So maybe here if I select this guy and then I can, if you, let's say for instance you want to remove an item from auto layout, you can drag like this to remove it. Okay, you can see it's not out. But what if you want to bring it back? You can drag like this, and when you have this auto layout highlighted, you can leave it. You can use your arrow key to push something forward or backward like that. Okay, so right now I want to remove this guy. I can just do something like this. Now I'm going to add a stroke to this and increase the stroke size to something like this. As I'm adding the stroke, it's coming in instead of outside. So I'm going to change this one to outside so that I have something like this. Now If I duplicate like this and change the color to something like this, and I do not have, okay, let's say I have something like that, and something like this, and here I'm going to remove the stroke and get something like this, and here I'm going to remove maybe no stroke, just change the color to something like this. So if I select these guys like this and press Shift A to add auto layout, now can you see if I begin to resize these guys, did you see that the auto layout here, the stroke is not recognizing the auto layout? That is, if the auto layout should recognize the stroke, is going the auto layout has to extend like this, maybe something like this, something like this. Okay, so it has to be something like this, but now it's not recognizing it. So for this auto layout to recognize it, I'm going to, let's set this man to hug. Maybe I'm going to explain why I set it to hug later. Now what I'm going to do now is to go to this settings here and then say I want you to include stroke. So when you include stroke, you can see because the stroke is making the item big, and that is why the auto layout is now on top of the stroke. But when you say it should exclude stroke, it's going to look like this. I hope you get the points. All right, so we're going to be moving this one somewhere here. Yeah, we are done. Okay, so the last one we are going to experiment with before we begin to do practical, I'm going to select this guy and add Shift A on the auto layout like that. So all right, now we have something like this. If let's say you can see this guy is having is filling the container like this, but this one is very small. What if I want this space to be closed? Maybe you say I will drag this one here and it's closed, right? So maybe that's your suggestion, but what if there's a better way? So I'll press Ctrl Z to undo. If you select this container this auto layout here, you can just come here and say from cog to fill. You can see now if you extend this man as much as you want, but when you select it and say I want it to be hug, it's going to hug the element inside like this. So if I select and drag like this, you can see it has no business with the main auto layout. What is after is the webbing of the things that it's containing. So let's take this one out here and let's go more practical way. Okay, so here this is a button which we've created. Okay, so let's use all that we've learned now to begin to create something like this. So I'm going to leave this text or this text somewhere here so that maybe you can follow along as well. So I have a text like this. So let's use this one to begin. All right, now the first thing we are going to do is to see that we have first name, and that is where we are going to start from. So I will select this and then write first name. So on this first name I will just, you can see this this thing, the text, sorry, okay, you can see that the text frame is extending. So the way you can make this text frame to hug this man easily, just to click on this auto width here, so it's going to lap it like that. I will increase the size to something like 24 for now. All right, so the next we are going to do is to add this guy auto layer. Shift A to add auto layer like that, and then I'm going to give it a stroke, not fill, just a stroke, to give the rounded corner of 10 like this. Okay, so now that we have something like this, we can now duplicate this guy like this and select both of them. This is an auto layout now, and this is an auto layout. So we can select this guy and shift A to add another auto layout. So which means you can select this and say I want it to be horizontal or vertical, like this. So first of all, let's align everything to horizontal and then write every item here. So I will change this one first name, and this one is going to be so last name, like this. So I will take this guy and duplicate, Ctrl D, and change it right up here to gender. So here, if you can see, you have to double click many times for you to be able to select the element you want. So I will show you the easier way. So if you double click now, Ctrl D. So if you want to select the text, you hold Ctrl key and click once, and you'll be able to select the element you want to. And I will duplicate, have phone, and select Ctrl D, and we have email, like this. And I'll duplicate again, Ctrl D, and you have sign up. Okay, so now we have this auto layouts that contains every element that we want. So we want to begin to arrange these guys so that it's going to be nice, like this one. Okay, so here you can see we are beginning to have some plenty stuff. So let's begin with this one. If you select this guy, you see that the color is yellow here. So I'll select the auto layout there and remove the stroke, and then add it a fill and make the fill any color of your choice, something like this. Maybe something like this should be fine. Okay, now I want to set this guy. So if you extend this guy, you can see nothing is happening. So you select the main auto layout, just extend it like this. Okay, so I want everything to fill in here. So what do I do? If you select these guys, you can see they are set to work by default now. So what do? We want them to fill the container, so you select all of them at the same time. It must not be all. You can select this one and say fill container, and select this one, fill container. Okay, so when you fill container, this one, the text is on the center, right? Which is nice, that is what you want. But on this one, the text is on the center, but I want it to be left aligned. What you can do is to come here and set the text to left. You see that? So you select this guy and say fill container and select alignment. Yeah, so you can do this at once by selecting this and pressing shift, select this and this, and say fill container and align it like this. So now you have this container having all of this. So you can see that this one has maybe two sides. So what do? The first name and the last name. So what is happening there? Let me do something so that it will not confuse you. Let's say I have these two here, and I select both of them like this and add auto layout, shift A, right? So if I set it to horizontal now, watch what happens. Did you see that? So that means if I select these two and add auto layout, shift A, and set the auto layout to horizontal, hope that is not magic, right? I hope you get the point. Now if I select these two, shift A, and set this one Okay, now you might ask, the gap here is too much. What do? You select the auto layout that is holding the horizontal axis and come here to the gap and make it something like 10 or maybe 20 should be enough. And you select this man and you make it 20 as well, like this. All right, now you have these two. Very well. So how about this one, the header and the subtitle there? So I will select, sorry, the heading and the subheading. I will select this and this one because they are together. Okay, I will add auto layer shift A and I will decrease the gap to something like 20 so that they are going to come close, or maybe something like 30 because 20 is too close. All right, now you can see we have something like this and we have this one. I will select this and press shift A to add auto layout. Okay, now this guy is not extending. What do? We select this one and say fill container. Now you can see how it is now. If I select this one and resize like this, you can see everything is resizing. If I increase the size like this, it will resize. And what do we do next? We add a background which is white, right? So I click on the fill to add a background and it's not looking modern like this one. What do? Why is it not looking like that? And that is because the gap in between is not cool. So what you can do is to select this guy and then click on the padding to add them a padding. So you say 20 padding there by 20 padding, okay, on the horizontal and the vertical padding. Okay, so now you have a padding. If you want to sweeten it up, you can add a rounded corner of something like 30. Yeah, so you can have something like this. Now I have this one here. I can say I have a star here and this star is placed randomly. What do? So what you can do, basically, let me explain that. If you have like a text like this, or maybe let me do something. You can remove something from an auto layout. So I select this and I can hold Alt and click and drag like this to remove it out of that auto layout, and it's now standing out on its own. So if I set it to hug, so that it's going to hug the content, and I give it a fill like so and remove the stroke for an instance. So here if I write like this, I'll say good, or maybe 3 front. I have 3. If I add auto layer shift A and add a fill, something like this, give it a rounded corner of 100, so everything is going to be completely round. I'll change the black color here to something like this. Now if I move it here, watch, if I move it here, it has not, and I move the main auto layer, it doesn't move. So what do? I can press Ctrl X and select this guy, press Ctrl V to paste like that. Okay, but this is not what I want. It is occupying its own space. That means if I increase the size, it's regarding it as another like a border of the main container. So I want this guy to stand alone. I want it to be like a tag. So what I can do is to select this guy and say ignore auto layout. When you ignore auto layouts, it's something like this. I think I can resize. For you to resize, you select the scale tool, and by default it's 51. I can say 10 for an instance. 10 is too small. Let's make it 30. So this guy, instead of it being an auto layer, being a border, you can see I have not been able to add it. If you are doing coding, this is more like position absolute or absolute position. So what I did is that ignore, like if I select this guy and then duplicate Ctrl D, you can see this guy is still there. Okay, so it's more like ignore the rules of auto layout and be part of the auto layout. Interesting. So, and you can, let's say, remove this, it's still here, and if you move this guy, it will still move because it's still part of the auto layout. So I want it to be here. The good thing about this is that you can still have something like this and add another auto layout, Shift A, and maybe select the move tool like this and add a fill like this. Okay, let's say we give it a padding of 20. Like this. Okay, so now this is another frustration here. Thank God it comes up. If you select this guy, why is the text not going inside? What is going on? Okay, and that is because this guy, we are going to set it, instead of fill, let's set it to hug, and then on this one we set it to hug as well. So when you set them to hug, this one is not like the content now is not going beyond the background. So you can select this guy and also say hug, so to have it like this. So if you keep on duplicating this guy, Ctrl D, it will have that man there. And you can also have another element, let's say something like this. For instance, if I select this guy and duplicate, sorry, so if I duplicate this guy and move it out like this and resize like this, so I want it to be part of this. If I drag it in, it's going to take its own position, but I want it to be position absolute, that is ignore auto layout. So if I say ignore auto layout, I can now be able to place this guy anywhere I want, while still okay. And if you duplicate this guy like this, you can also add another auto layout, Shift A. Okay, you can add fill and add padding like this. Okay, and if you duplicate any of them, they are still there. So hope is clear. I'm going to select this guy and put it somewhere here. Okay, so now we have been able to build this. If you have gotten to this extent, congratulations, you are now a pro. Okay, now if you want to determine the gap between them, maybe your own is not looking exactly as mine, you see this, I can adjust the size between these two. So let's say I want the size to be 50 for instance, and you might be like, how do I adjust the size between this one? And that is because you cannot adjust them here, because here in this area now, from this section, this man is saying that I just have two elements, this auto layout and this auto layout. These are the two that I have to determine the gap. So if I want to determine the gap of these two texts, I have to select the auto layout holding them and determine the size like this, or the size of the input field. You click on the auto layout holding them and determine the size, maybe by 20, or I think 30 should be fine, something like this. Okay, so that is exactly what I've done here. I selected it, maybe let's say text, and write star. And Shift A, and then give it a feel of yellow like this, or maybe any other color that you like. And just, if you press Ctrl X to cut, sorry, we press Ctrl X to cut and press select this auto layout here, press Ctrl V to paste. It's taking its own position, but you can say ignore auto layouts, and then you have it. So I can position it anywhere I want now without it disrupting or maybe changing the settings of the auto layout like this. And if you move it, it can move. You can also move it somewhere as I'm using the arrow key to move like this. So I hope your mind are beginning to tell you, or maybe remind you some of the crazy things you can create with this guy, with that guy there. All right, so now that we have something like this, how do we have been able to get something like this? How do we change it to this? In this case, I'm going to duplicate this guy. Okay, maybe what we can do is to select all of this. Okay, I will select this one. Okay, and then select this image here, Control C. Maybe I don't need this one anymore. Control C, and select this main auto layout here like this, and press Control V to paste. Okay, so why is it like this, and how can we make it better? Okay, I'm going to select this guy. For us to make it better, I want you to understand that the image is not filling the remaining space here. Okay, so what do? We select the image like this. Okay, and go to the width section and change it to fill container, and we have it. So you want it to go up, you select the image and use your arrow key to move it up like this. Okay, and the good thing about it is that you can resize it and the image will fit in like this. Okay, yeah, basically, what if you want to build it from scratch? For an instance, maybe you don't have something like this already and you want to build it to this extent. So what I can do is to maybe this text and this text. In short, we can even start with this one. Let's say we have something like this. I'm going to press Shift A to add auto layout like that. If your own is not doing the way mine is doing, maybe you select the main text itself and then press auto width so that it will be nice like that. Then the next thing is to duplicate. Control D to duplicate, and now you can see it's aligning horizontally. Select and then align vertical. Increase the gap to something like 20 like this. Then select this text and I'm going to copy this text. Of course, I know you already have something to write, which you can just start writing. So if I press this man and if I press let's say if you press Ctrl V, the text changes like that. But let's say you are in a situation where you don't want the text to change whenever you paste. You press Ctrl Shift V. You see, it pastes but still retain the property that the original text had. Okay, so but in this situation I want to just paste so that the font size here is going to remain the same. Now you have something like this. The next thing is to duplicate this man, Ctrl D, and I'll change to first name. First name like this. So for me to be able to give it this border, I will press Shift A to add it an auto layout. Now auto layout has been added, but maybe you did not notice. But just know that whenever you select any item and then you have this setting set, it means that auto layout has been applied. Now without giving it any other thing, and I just go straight to stroke, you're going to see the stroke is there, but it's not like what we can make use of, and that's because there's no padding on this. So I'll select this guy and make it 10 padding. Okay, so then the next thing is to duplicate again, Ctrl D, and I'm going to change it to last name. Okay, so and Ctrl D. So I want to assume that these are all that I need to. Now I want you to select all of this and then say fill container. Let all of them be fill container. so that they will all extend. Okay, and then you will say align left like this. Since this one and this one needs to be together, shift A to add auto layout on those two and set to something like this, and select this guy, shift A to add auto layout on them and set it to horizontal, and duplicate this one into 2 or 3 so that we can now make this one the button. Now the button, the words or the write up on the button has to sit on the center, so you click and it will sit. Sometimes when you align, okay, it will not align. One of the reasons there is that the text itself, okay, is set to center. For an instance, you might experiment by just changing it to something like this, that is selecting the text itself and switching to left align or center align on the paragraph section. Okay, I think that will solve your problem. Now when you select the auto layout itself, you give it a feel. Okay, I think I'm going to give it something like red color and then change the text color to something like white and remove the stroke like this. So now you have something like this now. Okay, the next thing we can do is that if you increase the gap in between, then you can see everything changes. There's no hierarchy, there's no organization, you don't know which is which, and so on. So what we cannot do is that this guy and this one has to be together, shift A to make them together. So I'm going to change to something like maybe 20, and this one and this one and this one, okay, they need to be together as well. I'll say shift A to add auto layout and make their gap 20 as well. So if I select this guy and increase this guy like this, you can see there's a little bit of clarity, a little bit of organization, and so on. So the next one is to now select this one, Ctrl C, and select the auto layout here, and then press Ctrl V. The way you start does not matter. Okay, you can even start by adding the image first and build the auto layout from it. So that is your own workflow. Okay, you can just develop it and it's just yours. So I'll select this guy and say fill content on the width and use the arrow key to move it to the top like that, and then select the main auto layout itself, give it a fill, and you have something like this. Maybe the gap on the borders did not match what you want, then we can increase this guy to something like 20. Okay, so if this is what you are going for, yeah, congrats, you just did it. Or you can decide to have like a rounded corner. I want to select all of these things and add a round corner on them, so I will select the auto layout here, okay, and press enter. When you select an item and press enter, the content inside will be selected, and now I can now change the round corner on them by just pressing 10 like this, writing 10. Now you can see, oh, so it did not select all of them. Yeah, that is because this one is inside an auto layout, so it stopped at a level. So what you can do is to, when you select this and then press enter, so that they will be selected, and then give them a rounded corner of 10 like that. So select this one and give it a rounded corner. The way to know the rounded corner to give this one, if this one is 10, or maybe let me do it this side. For you to know the best rounded corner radius you can give to the outer or maybe the container, is that if this one, for an instance, is the rounded the corner radius is 10, okay, so you calculate 10 plus the padding. So what is the horizontal padding here? So if you select this guy and you hover around here, you're going to see that the padding here is 20, and the corner radius on this image is 10. So 10 on the corner radius plus 20 of the padding, which is 30. So that means the outer corner radius there is going to be 30. So and when you do that, it's going to move so smoothly with no curve. Because watch, if I make it 40 for instance, you can see it's not nice, it's not looking cool, it's not looking professional. So do the maths like that. If this man is 10, you calculate, you plus it with the amount of padding you've added to the side, and you get a perfect smooth edge there. So now you have this, right? We have been able to build this. So can we take our step a little bit further? What if you want something like this? If you select this guy and extend this guy, this man like this, now you can see it's not extending to this, it's not extending beyond this length. If I extend it, it's not extending beyond this length. And if I begin to squeeze it like this, it automatically adapts. Wow, interesting. So it automatically jumps over and trying to reposition itself just for better user experience there, which is nice. So how do you make something like this? Because now if you select this one and then extend from now till tomorrow, nothing happens. Okay, instead you'll be getting a weird result. So how do we make it like this? Okay, if you can remember, let's say I select this guy now and duplicate and select this one, Shift A, and add auto layout. So if I select this guy, Ctrl D, Ctrl D, Ctrl D, now you can see these people are inside an auto layout, right? So if I resize like this, you can see nothing is happening. But when I set this guy to something like okay, when I set this guy to, if I set the distribution there to auto, that is the gap now should be auto. That means if I resize this man, the spacing changes like this. Okay, but if you do it like this, maybe if this is what you want, then you can go for it, but this is not what I want. I want you to okay, I want you to adapt based on the size of the screen. Okay, so remember what we talked about this wrapping earlier. So if I change this guy to wrapping, to wrap, that means if I begin to resize this guy, they will all adapt to the size of this man. So if I have something like this, let's say I duplicate this on Ctrl D to have more, you can see if I keep duplicating Ctrl D, they will keep aligning like that. Ctrl D, Ctrl D, Ctrl D. That is what the wrap does. If I take this guy and then extend like this, you can see it adapts. Interesting. So that means if you have two elements, okay, by the way, you can also determine the size, because once you change to wrap, you can see we now have a gap of, let me extend this guy like this. You can see we have a gap of 27. Like you can determine the gap in between the elements. Okay, now is locked. You can as well change it to determine the gap manually, like the gap on this or maybe the gaps on the column and the gap on the rows as well. So let's say this one has to be something like this and this one has to be something like this, you can see, or maybe there shouldn't be any gap at all. So you can do that like that, or you set it to auto and set this one to auto. What it means is that they will automatically adapt based on the size like this as you keep resizing, which is interesting. Yeah, okay, so that is that area, and then I want you to now think of how we can do this, because if this one should adapt like this, what if you just have two items? So let's say every other thing. Okay, let me use another stuff. Maybe we'll keep this one for. So let's say I duplicate this one here, and I duplicate like this, select both of them, shift A, and if I set it to wrap now, and I take the main auto layout and duplicate, you can see like this. If I resize, it adapts. So I hope your mind are beginning to tell you what we're about to do now. Okay, now I just remove the auto layout there. So you might ask, how do you remove auto layout then? Let's say you've added an auto layout here, and that was by mistake, or maybe sometimes you accidentally add auto layouts inside an auto layout and auto layout inside an auto layout. That is a very big error. You shouldn't even do that. Okay, watching, I can see I have up to many auto layout there. So how do you begin to remove them? You select the auto layouts, and if you right click, you're going to see an option that says remove auto layout. Okay, that is just the shortcut there to remove an auto layout, but I have a better one. If you press Ctrl backspace, it automatically removes the auto layout like that. So I'm pressing Ctrl backspace to remove them, and Ctrl backspace to remove. It will remove and ungroup. Now you can see this guy is separate and this guy is separate. Ctrl backspace to remove an auto layout. So now we have something like this. We did this, right? I hope you can still remember when you did this. If I extend this guy, nothing much is happening here. In short, our design is not even responsive. So let's first of all treat the responsiveness. For this design to be responsive, okay, this one must be fill container, so that as long as this this thing keep extending, the main auto layer keep extending, it should fill the container. Okay, so and this auto layer is not set to fill container, but the content inside is not set to fill container. So I'll select the content and say fill container. So if I select again and resize, did you see they are now adapting to the size like that? So if I resize like this, so that text is not set to fill container, the text inside here. So I'll select and select, press enter, and select everything here from hug to fill container and align like this. Okay, you can see where this map comes in like this. So the next one is this and this. You press enter and set them to fill container and align like this. So this one, the text here should also be fill container. You go to the width and then set fill container. So now if you resize like this, you can see there the responsiveness is perfect. So what do we do then? I want this man to jump over and do all of this stuff. So what you can do is that if you watch here, you see it's resizing. Okay, so I want you to notice that these guys, they now have like an auto layer containing these two, and this one is a separate element as well. So basically in this auto layer now we have 1 and 2 and 3. So and all we just need to have is 2. Okay, so that means I'm going to select these guys. By the way, I want to align these ones to the left. I want all this one to be left aligned, so I'm going to select and left align like this, and select left align. So what it means now is this. Okay, so now I'm going to select this one, press shift A, and this one shift A to make them one element. Okay, so now I have just 2 elements inside this auto layout. So if I press, we have something like this now. Okay, so now the next one is that for them to be for us to have that wrap option, these guys must be set to horizontal. So if I set it to horizontal, align horizontal. Okay, now the wrap is now out, so I cannot set this guy like this. Okay, so the next thing is to keep this guy the way we want it to be. So I will select this man and press enter. When I press enter, I can now set everything I want. Okay, I think everything is set to fill basically. So what we can do now is that if you begin to resize this guy, nothing much is happening. So I will select this one and I'll take this man to fill container, and I'm going to resize like this. You can see the way it's resizing now, because before it wasn't resizing very well. Now it's resizing very well. Okay, now the next thing we are going to do is that if you now set it to wrap, it might get weird. It will not even wrap, because they are still they are still resizing within themselves. So let's remove it from wrap right now. What we do is that there's a certain stage where this man scales to, and the information there is no longer showing, so it's no longer relevant. That means I want this guy that once he reaches this level here, so let me set this guy again to fill container. Okay, I want this guy that once he reaches this level, there should no longer resize again. That means I'm going to, whenever you click on this field, this stuff, you're going to see an option that says add minimum and maximum weight. So if I select this guy, let me increase the gap to something like 20, or I think 30 should be fine there. Okay, so adding minimum and maximum weight, what it means is okay, you know what, I want you to resize, but when it gets to this level, never go beyond this, or never go below this. So here I'm going to set this guy and say, you can see this size here. I will come here and say add minimum width. That means once you get to this extent, don't resize again. So I'll select and add minimum width. I can type the number here, but I can click and say set to current width. That means the current size will now be appear here, and I will select this one too and say click here, add minimum width, and say select current width now. Okay, so what this thing means is that if I click and drag like this, I can drag as much as I want, but when I drag back like this, okay, you can see when it gets to that level, you see that red sign there, that these guys will not go beyond this again, like that. All right, so now we've been able to set the minimum width that we want on these guys. Okay, but now this particular one is still extending, so I want this one as well to remain here. That means on this big auto layout here, the main auto layout, I want to also add minimum width on it so that it doesn't go beyond this, because once you begin to go beyond this, you can see my design doesn't look quite right anymore. So whenever it's here, I'll click here and say add minimum and set to current width. That means on this width, watch, I can now resize it as much as I want, but I cannot go, yeah, I cannot resize it anymore like this. And at the same level, when these guys extend like this, you can see when you begin to extend it like this, once it reaches this level, I think it's enough. So what we can do here is to select and say, instead of minimum, we'll click here and say add maximum width. That means whenever you get here, don't extend beyond this level, set to current width. Okay, so what we just did is that we can resize these guys in between here and here, no longer going beyond this level anymore. So but then these guys are not adapting, and that is because these two stuff, we need to tell them to wrap. That is, once you get to any level, they should wrap. Okay, so we select like this and then now choose wrap. So wrap now means that if you extend, it will automatically jump like this. Did you see? Did you see? Okay. If this man is not extending, make sure everything is set to fix. So you click this one, press enter to select all item, and then set it to fill container like that. So now if you resize, I think it should be fine. Oh, something bad is happening, and that is because even this one is not set to work. Okay, set to hug and set to hug, so that as they keep extending, it's going to be nice there. But I don't recommend that. I think something like this should be fine. Yeah. So whenever it's doing like this, you might ask yourself, what is happening here? So, and that is because this guy here cannot be set to fill container, but in this area we can fill container. Okay, and here we can fill container. Okay, and on this side we'll set to hot content, so that whenever you extend like this, it's not looking quite right. So what can we do now? So when you select this guy and you say I want it to be hug, so that means as once you begin to extend, it's going to hug the content like that. So, and once it reaches here, it doesn't go beyond this, and it doesn't go above this, which is nice. So okay, so when you take your time more, I think you can refine it to something like this. I just time the duration that is to use to switch, and then I add the minimum and maximum. Like if I extend this guy now, okay, you see that at this level is reaching this it's beginning to extend beyond, like the image is now going beyond this man. So what I did is to time it at this level. You can see they are perfect, so I said don't go below this level, and once it reaches here, you can see this thing came too early. That is the minimum width of this particular one came too early. So what if you want to remove minimum width and maximum width? You can select this guy for instance, and then come here and say remove minimum and maximum width. Okay, so if I click, I can remove. When I remove now, I can now be able to extend this one to this extent like this. So maybe I think something like this is nice. Yeah, so this is where I can now set minimum width, and then let it be current frame, so that I can be able to extend as much as I want. Maybe this is where I want. Okay, and I will set it to, sorry, I want to set it to add maximum width and set to current width. So now I can now be able to resize and resize and resize. Okay, hope you get that correct. Okay, so let's now use what we've learned, all that we've learned, and create something like this for an instance. Okay, so here we have web development. So I'm going to give you this text, and I'll give you this one, so please you can get it. Let's say let me come to this test, and okay, so I have this text and I'm going to remove this one. So let me do that quickly, and have something like this. Okay, so let's say we want to begin to design something like this. This guy, we can start with a rectangle. So I bring up a rectangle and draw like this. Okay, it must not be a square, it can be whatever you want it to be. And then this one and this one, I'll add a layout on them. Shift A. When I add Shift A, I can determine the gap by 10, and I will set the auto layouts on this one. Now for now I will set everything to hog and this one to hog. Okay, then I'll select this guy. You can see there's a lot of gap now. I'll select the text and text frame. On the text frame, I'm going to make it to be let's make it hog, so that the gap there will not be too much. So you select this one and I'll make the gap to be 10 for now. Okay, so now we have students and number of students. So the way we are going to be able to develop that man there is that this guy is an auto layout. You can get this icon from anywhere, like people, and this text is separate. I'm going to make it auto width and auto width. Okay, so I got a star, so let me remove this. If I select this one, I press Ctrl backspace to remove the auto layout, and I can just select one star like this and Shift A to add it auto layouts, and select this guy, Ctrl D, Ctrl D, Ctrl D. Okay, and then come here, remove the padding on them by writing 0, and the gap on them should be 0 as well, or maybe the gap should just be 2 like this. So now what we cannot do is this. We have auto layout on this, so I can select this one and this one and this one and this one, Shift A to add auto layout. So we are going to leave it like this for now. I'll make sure it's aligned center, okay, or maybe aligned top. Okay, so it's going to be nice. This guy is not aligned properly, so maybe that is what is causing it like that. So let's make it to align center. All right, so now this one, I will select everything here. We don't need all of these stars again, so I'll select everything here, Shift A like that. So now remember, this is what we are trying to recreate, and this one is separate. I'll set to auto width, and this one, I don't know why the image looks like this, but it's supposed to be like this, please. Yeah, it's not nice, just squash image like this. Okay, so I will select this one and Shift A. So now that we've grouped them the way we want, what the next thing we can do is to select all of them like this. But I don't know, doing it like this, it might be complex for you. So let's take it bit by bit. I will select this guy and see that the gap here is just 5. Okay, and I'm going to take this one. You can see that this one, the students, the icon, the number of students is closer than the this star here. So what we can do is to select this student and this icon and the number of students, and press Shift A to add them auto layout, so that we cannot control their gap separately by just 10. 10 is too much, we'll make it 5. Now you can see, now what you cannot do on this one, to add this background, you're going to add a background fill. If you have this, if you get this far, you can be able to get something like this. So I'm going to add this fill here and have something like this. Okay, we can add it a padding or horizontal padding of 10. If 10 is too much, you can make it 5, please. Okay, and then we'll give it a corner radius of 5 like this. So now we have this one. Okay, so the next one is this one, and this one, Shift A. So I'm going to give it okay, so let's say we have this guy here is extending too much, So I'll give it, I just selected the text and then give it auto width so that it's going to hug itself. Yeah. So when I select this guy, I can be able to determine the size. How about this one? So I'm going to auto width like this so that the text is going to come in and determine their gap. I think this one I can say no. Oh, it should be, so let's make it 2. Yeah, and then we have something like this. Okay, so and this one, we on this auto layout, we are going to give it a fill, and the fill is going to be something like this. So in this case, we are going to give it I'm going to make sure the gap there is something like 10, and the horizontal padding, so the padding here, maybe I will not change the pad. Okay, the padding should be maybe 5. Sorry, just horizontal padding should be 5. Okay, and I'll give it a rounded corner radius of 5 as well. Okay, so then the next thing is to select all of them like this and press Shift A to add auto layout on them, and then you can now control their gap. Maybe 20 or 10 should be fine. Or 10 is too close. Let's make it 15. I think 20 is nice. Yeah. Now when you add it something like this, we can now select this dude here and select this one, Shift A to add auto layout. For this one to fill up, we are going to select this one like this and then say fill container like that. Okay, so the next one is to add an image. So to add an image on this, we can do something like this. Since we already have an image here, we can Control C this image, or maybe Control C this image here, and come here, and or maybe you can add your own image anywhere you want. Okay. Oh, adding it like this is not going to be cool. We are going to select the fee here like this. This view, Control V. Oh, it didn't happen. So let's do it the normal way. I wanted to do some magic, but it did not. Okay. If I really want to do, I don't want to do what you do not have. So let's do it the way you do have it. Now let's have something like this. I just opened a plugin called Unsplash, so let's know if you can get an image from there. So maybe I can just let's use abstract interior. Okay, so have something like this. Now you can see you can now select this main auto layout here, and we will give it a fill. And on this field, I will give it a corner radius of 30. 30 is too much, we can make it 20. Okay, so when we give it 20, you can see everything seems fine except this one here. So you have to select this one too and give it 20. Now we give it 20 if this is what you're looking for, but the padding here is not right. So what do we do? If you select this one and give it a padding at this level, maybe let's give it a padding of 10 for an instance, or 5 should be fine. So if you do a padding like this, and then I think the vertical padding should be 10. Oh, that doesn't look nice. Okay, I think this is okay. So if this is what you want, you can go for it, but this is not what I want. Okay, what I'll do is to select this guy and remove the padding there to 0. Remember, this is what you want to achieve. So what I'll do here is that I increase the padding here and it's increasing the right. So what I'll do is to click here, so I can now be able to remove 0 this side and 0 this side. Then select this guy on this level and then add a padding here, a horizontal padding of 20. Oh, 20 is too much. let's manage 10, a horizontal padding of 10. So what is happening here? Can we interpret that if you select this guy, it needs to use some field container? So that means for it to be able to cover up that people there, this man has to extend like this. So that means I'll have to set the man to hug content. When I hug content, this guy is not setting. If you set this guy to hug content, and for this man to be able to sit where, you have to select this and then say hug content as well. Okay, so when you hug content, you now select this and then say field container so that it will reach this side. So I don't like the fact that there's no padding here, so I can say the side should be, or maybe I don't want it. If I add a padding here, it's going to be applied here, and there's a much space here already. So I will expand this man and only add the padding on the bottom there, which is pretty cool. I think the gap is too much. Why not make the gap 15, so it will be more interesting. Okay, so we'll build something like this. You might say, oh, this one is too big or this one is too small. Yeah, I decided like that. So that is how I want it, or maybe that is how we want it. Okay, so you can see we've been able to build this one. So how about this one then? Okay, the best way you can get something like this, I think, let's say if you watch here now, you can see this one is separate and this one is separate as well. So the only difference here, if I duplicate now, is to, let's say I have something like this. I'm going to select this and remove the rounded corner to 10 and select this one and remove the rounded corner to 10 as well. Okay, and this one I'll remove the padding. There should not be padding here, the padding should be 0. So what I will do now is just come here and give the padding on the main container padding of 10, and you have something like that. Remember how to calculate this one. For this guy to be smooth now, you can see this padding here, the padding I've given this man is the rounded corner here, the corner radius is 10, and the padding here is 10. So for this one to be smooth, it has to be 10 plus 10, which is 20. So the rounded the corner radius of this octal layout here is 20, and you can see it's now very smooth and very nice like that. So now what if you want to get something like this? To get something like that, you can build from scratch. But what if you already have something like this? We're going to duplicate this guy and select it like this. So what you can do is to select the main auto layout and switch to horizontal. Yeah, just like that. You did it. Okay. Okay, now we can, if you want to really add this, you can bring up a plugin called unsplash, sorry, forceful icon, and just search more, and you're going to get something like this. You drag it out, the more comes like this. I'm going to open the fill and give it a black and reduce the opacity to something like 10 or 20. So what we can now do here is that these guys and these guys, for me to be able to create something like this, I need to add a set, because if I drag this guy here, it's going to create that to there. So I'll select this guy and say hot contents, right? And select this one and say hot content as well. Now I'm going to click on this and scale it up by selecting the scale tool and making something like 30, and I'm going to press V to go back to the move tool and give it a rounded corner of 100. Why 100 is just to make sure everything is completely round. So now how do I place it in the center? I can just select this guy and say center, and everything will be centered like that. Is that what I really need? Is that how I can do it? Yeah, I can now select this one here and use the arrow key to move forward like this. Okay, so if this is what you need, yeah, you're done. Okay, but I think the if you want to space them out now, for instance, you have to come here and space it out, and you can see the distance between here and this one and this one, they are the same thing. What if you just want to control the distance here? What would you do? So that is where this one and this one, okay, they need to be in a separate auto layout by pressing Shift A, so you can align to the top so that it goes to the top there. Now if you select this guy and increase the gap, now you can see you just have to worry about that man there. And if you want the distance, then you increase this one like this. Okay, so the next thing that we can do is this. You can see there's a line here. So what do we do on that line? What we can do is to select this guy, and I'm going to add it a padding, just a padding of 10, and I'm going to select this and add it a stroke. When I add a stroke, you can see the stroke is going everywhere now, right? This is not what I want. I just want the stroke to only appear on the right hand side, and the stroke width should be 0.5, and the stroke color should be 50, and you have something like this. So we can decrease the gap there by making it 10 like this. So it's not like exactly the way I've done it. Another person might be able to do it, or maybe another person will do it. So the idea is to develop your own workflow, but sometimes it depends on what, or maybe the functionalities that you want the component to have or the element to have, because now it's not responsive. If I want it to be responsive, I can begin to tweak some things. Maybe make this one fill container like this, so that if I resize again now, it's not filling. Why? Maybe because the element containing them is not set to fill container. And let's check it again. Yeah, it's not filling, but this one is not, because this one is set to hog. It's not filling. It should fill, okay? And this one now is not filling. Do you know why? Because there's a definite gap between this guy, 26. That means it must be maintaining the 26. So what do we do so that it should not always go beyond? And that is where this man comes in, auto. So whenever I set to auto and I set it to fill container, I can see it will now adjust. Now if I select this guy and resize like this, okay, it's not responding there, but it's trying. That is because this one need to also fill. Yeah, so if I click and drag like this, wow. So what we can also do here is to select these guys and break it up. I will select this one and tell it to hog, and select this one and make sure it's hog, and select this guy and tell it to wrap, so that whenever it gets there it should change. Did you see that? I'm sure you saw it. I want to be sure you saw it. So I will select this guy, this one here, this one here, this one, and then set it to hog, so that when it begins to change, oh, it won't be nice anymore. So of course, Figma is not perfect. It's not going to be giving you everything you need, but it's trying. Yeah, it's trying. So that means I have to bear this area like this. If you don't like that gap there, you can control the gap I just selecting this guy, say 10. It's 10. 10, not too much. 5. Yeah. So now if you drag again, you can see it's nice. Okay, this one, it should be few content as well. This text, yeah. So now you have something like this. Okay, so this is where I'm going to stop. The tutorial is getting long and long and long, so I feel like I should stop here. If you want to see me create something more complex like this, something, I think this one is a little bit simple. If you're able to create this, why not create this? Okay, so the only difference is that I just added this in a frame, I think iPhone 16 frame, and then build this man inside like this. So if you want to see me build like a real app with auto layout, or maybe build something more complex like this, okay, so I think you should just leave a comment in the comment section, because I can decide to show you how you can use the same auto layout to build something more complex like this. Everything you are seeing here is an auto layout. Everything here is an auto layout. Maybe you can just design a full page like this. Everything here is an auto layout, and they all respond according to the way they are needed. So I want to be sure that you've gotten all that you've learned, and I hope to see what you've created from what you've learned. Okay, then if you think you still need more to get solidified on this auto layout, then leave a comment on the comment section, and then I'm going to respond as much as possible. Okay, so if you've gotten to this extent and you have not subscribed, please, I plead with you, subscribe.